All right, well, welcome to our June 6th Commissioners Teachers Advisory Council meeting. As we begin, take it to item 1 with our welcome from Commissioner Glass, and he may be joining us a little late. Just want to see if he has been able to join yet. Dr. Glass? Okay. We'll go on to item 2, and I'm going to turn it over to our TAC chairperson, Jamal Stiles.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you this morning. I'm going to be doing the roll call of members, so when I say your name, if you will unmute to let us know that you are here. Erica Dill, Byron Wilson, Chad Davison,
So I'm here.
Kason Higgins, Carla Criswell,
Here.
Sharon Collins,
Here.
Jen Davis, Misty Bevins, April Jackson, Kanita Ballard,
Here.
Amber Ramirez, Gregory Smith, Amanda Claire, Susan Sintra, Rosa Cubiero,
Here.
Sarah Green, Donnie Wilkerson,
Here.
Jane Modlin.
Here. Good morning.
Good morning. Sarah Beard,
Here.
Melanie Callahan, Carla Lawson,
Here.
Charlene Martin, Scott Osborne,
Here.
Jennifer Stewart,
Here.
and Amy Eliskine.
Here.
Good morning, everybody. If you'll take a minute to look at the summary minutes. And then we'll need a first and second approval of that. So can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
It's Donnie Wilkerson. I'd move the approval as submitted.
Thank you. Second.
Sharon Collins, I second.
Thank you. Stacy, do you want to do this next slide?
Yeah, we just wanted to take a moment to congratulate Scott Osborne from Lawrence County. He is having retirement here effective June 30th. So we wanted to thank him for his service. And Mr. Osborne, do you want to say anything as you're thinking about rounding down the days here for your service to the teaching profession and such?
Oh, thank you, Stacy. I really appreciate it. I'm teaching summer school until middle of next week, so I kind of haven't really had to reflect too much. But yeah, this has been great. It's been an honor to serve on this council, and I'll be an active KEA retired member. So I'm going to keep fighting the fight. But I've had a wonderful career in public education here. For almost 30 years. So yeah, just thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We'll miss you as part of the group here. Okay. And one more little thing that I wanted to share. If you are in the group here and that you would like to spotlight the interpreter, we do have an interpreter available. All you have to do is on the picture of the interpreter is just hit that pin button, and then you'll be able to have that particular image highlighted on your screen. So I just wanted to remind everyone about that. as well. We've got their digital sign-in, and we do this every single meeting. And I'm going to ask Allison, if you don't mind, just to drop that link in the chat for us. That would be very helpful. And if not, if you can't get that link right now, Allison, we can add it towards
It's
the end
there.
of the meeting. Okay, great.
It's there, Stacy.
Thank you. And we've got our minutes, and then we've got item 3. And I was going to just ask Dr. Darnell to speak to this one just for a minute. Our teacher morale feedback loop. We've had a possibility of, I guess, kind of a proposal and thinking about how we can better keep our finger on the pulse of teacher morale. And so Dr. Darnell is going to talk to us a little bit about this.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Stacy, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sure can.
All right. Well, June has arrived, and as it's already been mentioned, oh, hang on, Dr. Glass just popped in. Hey, Dr.
Hi,
Glass, I know your time is challenged, so if you, I don't want to overstep. If you want to jump in.
Sure. No, I just wanted to say hi and greet everyone. And I don't want to interrupt the flow of the meeting, but just wanted to say thanks for all the work that you've done this past year. I know that's been another challenging year. We are seeing good progress in post-COVID recovery, and we know that we've got more work to do on that, but we're excited about all the efforts underway in school districts across the state and the work that you did this past year, and in summer programs and other enrichment programs. We're really seeing some nice progress being made as well. But I do know that it's just been a challenging year on a number of fronts, and please hear from me how much I appreciate the work that you do, and I'm grateful for the support that you give your students and families and each other, the team that's around you. We have been working with KASA on supports for the teaching profession. We did get a little help with legislation last legislative session around some supports for the teaching profession, but I think even the bill sponsor of that would tell you that it didn't go far enough or do enough that it's going to make a material impact. So we've got more work to do in this upcoming legislative session. I think Representative Tipton has an interest in trying to support that. So one of the things that we would really be interested in working with you on is from the teacher's perspective, what are the things that you need? What would be helpful? So we really hope that we can use this teacher advisory council to give us good information on what are the supports that the teaching profession needs, what would make a difference, and have that inform our policy in the state. Dr. Darnell, I'll turn things back over to you, but just quickly wanted to say hi and thank you, and we look forward to working with you on this really important issue for Kentucky schools going forward.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I will just echo those sentiments. I hope that you are getting a chance to exhale a little bit. It's deserved. I know there's probably some, as already mentioned, Mr. Osborne, you've got some summer school. There's always something, right? The fallacy that you get the summers off. If that's not one thing you get offended by when people say it. Now, it's nice because hopefully the schedule slows a little bit, but you all are constantly involved, working, coaching, just camps, you name it. So, but we sincerely hope that there is time for you to recoup, because it is desperately needed, and just thrilled to be here and to get some time from you all, given the fact that we're kind of in that period where we like to lull a little bit. As Dr. Glass mentioned, just please also know that the level of concern is red for the conversations that we're having about our workforce, you all in particular, in all facets of the positions that make our schools successful. And so just please know that those conversations are persistent and constant in terms of doing our best to represent the voices of you all and your peers across the state. And we are always available to you for any type of conversation, any type of feedback that you are willing to offer. I would say that if you're not quite sure of the concerns, then maybe there's just a lack of paying attention, because all over. But as a voice and as a community within this group, Dr. Glass just wanted me to propose an idea that if you all wanted to, as a council, to take up the issue of teacher morale from your all's perspective. He would invite any movement or means that you all would see in terms of getting feedback, producing something in the way of information back to the commissioner's office directly from the voices represented here. So it's more of a food for thought as you all go through the meeting today, and then within the near future, if there is someone, a group, or everyone that wants to take up the mantle of a more formalized report back on teacher morale, we're here to support you in that. So I know we don't have to address it now, but I just wanted to put it on the table. So just something to consider, and we're open to anything that you all might want to commit some time to. We can help provide some resources for you all to do that in order to have a Kentucky voice in the teacher morale conversation. So I just invite that as a seed for consideration, and we'll be more than happy to support you all. But again, just so thankful that you're able to join us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So one thing that I've done is I've created a Jamboard. Excuse me, I'm going to drop the link into the chat that asks 2 questions. What are some areas that you think that are impacting teacher morale? And then what do you see as practical solutions to this issue? So I'm sure everybody has done a Jamboard, but on the side, there's a place for sticky notes. So let's try not to put the same topics on there. Let's try to, if you see one that somebody has put on there, maybe think of something else. So that
Jamal, it is view only.
I changed it. Okay. Now try it. Works. Okay, cool. All right, so just as we meet today, just go through and put your thoughts on there, and then we will, this will be an ongoing conversation that we have over the next several months. And we'll just see what you think about the issue and see if we have some common themes that we can address. So as we meet today, just you have access to that Jamboard. All right, so next on our agenda is John Pace with the Office of Educator Licensure, who's going to talk about educator recruitment efforts and the National Signing Day. So Mr. Page, you can take over.
Well, thank you. Good morning, members of the Teacher Advisory Council. Thank you for asking me to present on our division's latest efforts in early educator recruitment and development. On May 2nd, 84 seniors from 22 high schools participated in the 2023 Educators Rising National Signing Day. And we wanted to take a moment and celebrate their choice to pursue a career in the field of education. And this was a national event that is sponsored by Educators Rising. And so seniors from across the country participated in this event. And the signing day was held for all upcoming high school graduates who have committed to pursuing a post-secondary degree in education in one of the Commonwealth's educator preparation programs. Now, in the interest of time, I'm not going to read off all 84 names, but I do want to mention all the districts that had participated, and that was Ballard County, Beechwood Independent, Caldwell County, Callaway County, Christian County, Fayette, Fulton County, Graves County, Hopkins County, LaRue County, Livingston County, Lyon County, McCracken County, Marshall County, Metcalfe, Murray Independent, Trigg County, Union County, and Webster County. So you can see just from that list, it's a nice spread across the entire Commonwealth. Now, one of the highlights of the event was that Murray State hosted all of their rising freshmen on campus, and of those 84 students have committed to pursuing careers in education in the Commonwealth, Murray State boasted 45 of those who participated in the signing day. So it was quite an effort. Next year, we're looking to get more of our education preparation providers to host this event on campus and make it even bigger. And interesting to note that last year we had roughly 25. And so we once again are growing our numbers more than double, taking Dr. Darnell's challenge to us last year very seriously. So Dr. Darnell, thanks for always pushing the bar higher. So on June 29th, the Educators Rising National Conference will be held in Orlando, Florida, and there will be a recognition of all those students who participated across the nation in signing day. And interesting to note that once again, the national conference has blown its numbers out of the water. This will now be the largest conference ever held for Educators Rising. So for all those who are saying, oh, students aren't pursuing careers in education much anymore, I would say no, they are. We just have to continue to work harder and continue to promote the education profession as a viable and valuable career option for our high school seniors.
Awesome. Thanks so much. It's such a great program. We have several students at our school that are involved in that. So thank you, Mr. Pace.
Thank you for
All right.
having me today. As
Jamal,
always.
if I could
Yes.
just post to the group, I put it in the chat, but anybody in the group, did you hear your district mentioned? Did you know that was going on within your district, the signing day? Were you part of it perhaps? Okay, so challenge to all of our TAC members as we're thinking about National Signing Day for next year. And do we have a date for that, John? Is it already set? You're muted.
Not yet, but it's always the first week in May. So shortly after folks finish their state conferences, that's usually the first week in May. And I will keep everybody abreast of those dates. And if you're interested, I do have an Educators Rising newsletter that I put out each month specifically for our chapter sponsors. But if you'd like to get on that list, I'd be happy to add you.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. Considering you all are our teacher leaders representing the state, I think it's super important for you to take an active role within your districts, and maybe right now is the time to be talking to people within your district, the decision makers and such, about getting involved in this program so that we'd be ready for our next National Signing Day. Because TAC members, we'd like for you to be the ones in the pictures there, shaking hands with the students and sharing it on Twitter. As Allison said, we had Graves County that did a social media burst with everything that was going on National Signing Day for their students.
Yeah, there was a lot going on that day with social media. I had a hard time keeping up. It's like I was getting notifications left and right. I'm like, okay, I got to keep up with this.
Right. And John, Sarah, in the chat there, she's asked to be added, and hopefully we'll have some more people populating that chat with that request.
I will keep an eye on it all day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is Christy Biggerstaff from the Director of Early Literacy, who's going to talk to us about Senate Bill 9, Read to Achieve initiatives. Christy, you can take over.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
All right, good deal. I am so honored to be with you all today. Thank you so much for all that you do for our students in Kentucky. I'm going to talk to you just a few minutes about Senate Bill 9, just one particular portion of Senate Bill 9, and it's called the Read to Succeed Act. If you've not heard about it, it has a lot of moving pieces and parts in the bill, but I'm going to focus on just one part of that today. If you would go to the next slide, please. And that is the LETRS initiative, our reading academies that we have got out. And I always start out with the why. Why did we need the reading academies and training around how the brain learns to read? And as you can see on your screen, there are results from the K-PREP and the KSA proficiency assessment test for the last several years. Now, I could have pulled way back because these results are pretty consistent across the years. So you can see that half of the students in the state of Kentucky essentially are not reading at proficient levels. And this is particularly the third grade reading levels. And we know that there is a huge significance to third grade reading because the research tells us and science tells us that if kids are not proficient by the time they reach third grade, they are more likely to drop out. They're more likely to be involved in juvenile crime. If they are proficient, they're going to have higher self-esteem. They're going to have success across the content areas. So we know that getting our kids to proficient levels by the time they reach third grade is significant and something that we are charged to do as educators. So of course, COVID came in and exacerbated the issues, just like we knew that COVID was going to do. And in 2021, the proficiency rate dropped to 29.8%. We bounced back a little bit from that in the 2022 results at 45%. But I know that all of us on this call today feel the same way, that none of us are okay with half of the students in the state of Kentucky being at proficient. If you'll go to the next slide, we'll dive down into the subgroups just a little bit. And sorry, the slides are a little wonky for some reason. When I shifted them over there, they have got a little out of array there. But you can see that the subgroups that we have in the state of Kentucky, they have dismal results as well. I see these numbers often. I refer to them every time I speak to a group of educators and principals and administrators. And it always brings back a sense of urgency to me when I see these numbers, because 75% of the Black students in the state of Kentucky are below proficient levels. It is alarming. And at this point, a moral imperative that we get our kids to reading at proficient levels. You can see the other subgroups there. Our English learners, 71% are below proficiency. Students with disabilities and IEPs are at 68%. So the numbers have told us for some time we must do something different when it comes to literacy, because obviously what we are doing in the state with reading instruction is not working. So that's where the professional learning comes in. We realized and recognized that we have to do something different. So the reading academies is our answer to something different. It is a piece of that. And we know that educators need to be given this professional learning so they have the information, so they can teach and reach all of their kids. On the next slide, it should start talking about, yes, so this is all the pieces and parts, or many of the pieces and parts of the Read to Succeed Act. Again, there's multiple, but I only have a few minutes with you today, so I'm going to just talk about the professional learning support strategies that we're doing with Senate Bill 9. On the next slide. The purpose for the Kentucky Reading Academies is to increase those numbers we just looked at. We have got to do something different, and the letters training is our answer to that something different. So we can increase the outcomes for our students, and we can provide high quality, job embedded professional learning on how students learn to read. This is information that we have not been given as educators in the state of Kentucky before. Next slide, please. So what is LETRS? LETRS is Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling, and it essentially does this. It helps us determine what to teach kids in order for them to be successful, why some students struggle, and then it gives appropriate evidence-based strategies to help them overcome those struggles. And then it helps us to understand how students learn to read and write. And I think that portion is so important, because once we understand how the brain learns to read, the why and the what becomes a lot easier. Next slide. So the Kentucky Reading Academies is something that is Kentucky's never done this as a state before, provided such intensive, high quality professional learning statewide. It removes all the financial barriers for you as educators. It is absolutely free. It's one of my best terms that I give, and I love to say it. It is free professional learning, and it is expensive professional learning. Letters cost around $1,500 per participant to be involved in, and Senate Bill 9, the funding behind Senate Bill 9 is taking care of that. It invests in you as an educator. This is knowledge that you can take and keep your entire career and beyond. It is not a program. This is not one of those professional learnings where you have to implement something. It is knowledge. It is learning. It will align with any curriculum that you have going on within your school district, and it's sustainable. And again, you will carry this throughout your career. So we started with our cohort 1, phase 1 last fall, and we had over 1,800 participants in our first cohort. So excited that we had so many interested in that. So we have finished the first volume. There's 2 volumes to the learning, meaning it's 2 years of learning, and it is a lot. It is intensive, but it has been worth it. That's what I hear from participants all the time. So our next cohort or phase is coming up. The registration is now open, and it will be open until August the 31st of this year. And again, it will run 2 years. Next slide, please. And who can participate? And that's basically everybody in public education that works with K through 5 students, whether you be a literacy coach, an administrator, a teacher, a special education teacher, anybody that works with our K through 5 students in public education can participate. We do have 2 different types of courses. We have a letters for administrators and a letters for educators. And we also have a fantastic partnership with our educational cooperatives that are offering a CEO rank change for participating in letters. Now, they own that piece of work, the cooperatives do. So if educators are interested in getting a rank change while participating in letters, I encourage them to reach out to their local cooperative to see if they have that opportunity available. But many have taken advantage of that. It's an awesome partnership. And again, it allows you to do the work in letters and gain the rank change at the same time. Next slide. So we gave a survey to our participants in phase 1 last year, and it was only after 2 units of the learning. So within each year, I mentioned volumes. Within each volume, there are 4 units per volume. So they had already completed, or they had just completed 2 units of learning when we sent this survey. We got amazing results and feedback. There were almost 500 respondents to that survey. And when you have that many educators responding, it tells me that they had something to say. So what they told us, and 95% of them told us that this is new information. They have never learned it before. They've never heard about it before. And this is relevant information. And I feel like that is significant. 93% of them said it's helping them to better meet the diverse learning needs of their students. I've received multiple written testimonies. They have shared their classroom achievement, their student gains. It has been very impactful from the ones that we have heard from within their classrooms and their students. Next slide. I want to share with you just a couple of the testimonials that I had received from teachers. This is Courtney Line. She's in Memorial Elementary, Hart County School District. I love Courtney's story because it is a story that is echoed through several of the participants that have reached out to me. She is a 3rd grade teacher. So remember the significance of 3rd grade. So she has a 3rd grade student to walk into her classroom in August and said, I don't know how to read and I can't read. And she knew that that is something a 3rd grade student shouldn't be saying. So she was involved in the letters professional learning. She had 2 units under her belt when she started implementing some of the strategies that she had learned and just the information and knowledge she had learned. And she said that I think it's the best thing that she says in her entire testimony. She says he has made an entire year's worth of gains. She said, is he where he needs to be? No, but he is making improvement. But she said significantly what he says is he now volunteers to read and he loves to read. She says Letters has transformed how educators think about teaching reading, and she knows it really has changed her view of how she plans instruction. Next slide, please. I won't read all of these testimonials to you, but again, it echoes what I'm hearing from many of the participants in the phase 1, cohort 1 of Letters training. Mark Gaskins in Fort Thomas said, this has been the best learning experience I've had in 19 years of teaching. And I get that a lot. So people reach out to me and say, I'm a first-year teacher, I'm a second-year teacher. I have educators participating in Letters that have 27, 28, 29 years of teaching experience, and they all say the same thing. This is new information and it's relevant, and it is the best professional learning that I have gotten so far. So although it is intensive, it's 2 years, it's a lot of information that you have to learn. They are saying it is worth it, and it's really changed and impacted my educational career. Again, Christy Rhodes in Jefferson County says, I've been able to apply my knowledge immediately. Narissa Crisp says it's truly making a difference in the reading confidence and abilities of my students. And again, I won't read all of them, but we are hearing that this training has impacted significantly the classroom experience. Next slide, please. So the last thing that I will leave you with is the registration information. Again, phase 2, cohort 2 is open. It will close at the end of August, and then during September, participants will receive their platform information, their login. It's set up very much like an online class, and they will also receive hardcover materials in the mail. They'll put all that information in so we can get that to them. And then the learning will begin in October of this coming school year and then run the course of 2 years. Those links are also live on our early literacy web pages, and you can just Google the Kentucky Reading Academies, and that will pop up for you to read more information about. Again, I am Christy Biggerstaff. If you have any questions regarding the early literacy work, the reading academies, the Letters training, please reach out to me. I love to help educators and administrators in school districts learn more about this opportunity. And I'm so thankful that I got to talk to you all today.
Thank you so much, Christy. A lot of great information. The link to the slideshow is in the chat. So if you want to click on any of those links, to do to be a part of the Letters training, those links are in the chat. Or the link to the
I think
slideshows.
Kanita has a question as well,
yeah.
Jamal.
Sorry, Kanita does have a question, sir.
So sorry, Ms. Biggerstaff. Could you also speak to, I know that it is coming up, and it might be that it is not connected to the Read to Succeed work, but I know for secondary, there is work coming out focusing on the book Supporting Adolescent Readers. Is that going to be connected to Letters in the reading academies, or is it going to be separate work? Because I know, and can we also get a plug for that? Just because I know that for myself, I've been salivating looking at what's going on with Letters, except I can't get involved in it yet. Because it's for elementary. But I know that work was being developed and it was coming for secondary.
And I will say that is not part of my work, so I can't really speak to that specific thing, but I will say this, we know that is a need, because secondary educators are reaching out to us saying, I have students in my classroom, in my 7th grade classroom, in my 9th grade classroom that are on a 2nd, 3rd grade reading level. We need this information too. So we have a very exciting partnership developed with TNTP, and they are going to be helping us in the next couple of years build out training that's very similar to Letters specifically for our secondary educators. So just know that that is coming from us. And again, the opportunity that you mentioned, I can't speak to. It sounds exciting, and I know that that is a need. So I'm super glad that those opportunities are out there. But we are working on developing something for secondary educators because we know it's a need. So thank you for saying that.
Awesome. Any other questions for Christy before we let her go?
Thank you so much for the
Thank you,
opportunity.
Christy.
Mhm.
Appreciate you. All right, next on our agenda is the at-a-glance documents for the academic standards for science and social studies. And this will be presented by Thomas Klaus and Crystal Rowland from the Division of Program Standards. So Thomas and Crystal, you can take over.
Thank you, Jamal. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having us today. We'd like to share with you the at-a-glance documents that are outlining the shifts in the Kentucky Academic Standards for Science and the revisions to the Kentucky Academic Standards for Social Studies in response to the Teaching American Principles Act. So I'm excited to announce that we do have a tentative date for the CAS for Science to be officially adopted into regulation, and that is July 5th of this year. And the tentative date for the Kentucky Academic Standards for Social Studies is September 5th. Sorry. And so what we're going to share today, these at-a-glance documents, we hope will help to support teachers in the field as well as administrators understand the shifts that took place in those two documents as you begin to prepare to implement those. On the screen, we have a couple of questions that we'd like for you to consider as we share, and we'll give some space at the end for you to give us some of your thinking around what resources or supports do you think teachers and educators might need in the field to implement these revised CAS documents? And also, what supports do you think that school leaders in your building might benefit from as well?
Thanks, Crystal. So we'll start off with the Kentucky Academic Standards for Science, and these were reviewed and revised based on the statute 1586453. So that involves having advisory panels and review committee come in, led by educators from across the state to review and revise the standards. And so what we want to talk to you about today is kind of how these things are going to be communicated out. So the at-a-glance document, so to assist in communicating the kind of revisions to the Kentucky Academic Standards for Science, we will be releasing an at-a-glance document that kind of details the shifts that were made from those committees. So as we move through, and we'll look through some of the big changes today, but as we move through some of those key pieces, it's important to point out that the revisions were based on feedback from public comment as well as focus groups. And really those revisions were largely centered around including building more clarity and also adding supports. And Crystal's going to drop a link to the at-a-glance for Science in the chat. All right. So one of the kind of revisions, or one thing that was included within this version of the standards document, was a writer's vision statement. And the writer's vision statement is really crafted based on feedback from public comment. This statement really set the tone for the revision, and basically what it is the foundational belief of what that student experience should be like K through 12 in science in Kentucky. The vision mentions the need for students to have multiple and ongoing opportunities to engage with the interconnectedness of the 3D standards, and also that educators have ongoing opportunities around professional learning within the standards. So a short couple paragraphs, but really impactful in capturing kind of what the vision was of the writers as they were working through this. One of the supports that the writers felt was needed was the addition of grade level overviews. And so for grades K through 8, there are overviews, as well as for grades for high school, physical life and earth and space. And really what these are is they provide a snapshot of kind of what that experience will look like at every grade level. So what are those specific concepts and practices that students will be working with for K through 8 and then through high school? The committee also put together grade banded overviews for the science and engineering practices, and you'll be able to see those for K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and high school. And so really what these do is not just provide a snapshot of what's going on in a year, but by looking through these, you also get a sense of kind of what that trajectory and experience looks like K through 12 in science. I do want to pause because when we put the architecture up, I just want to give you a second to look through it and kind of situate kind of the different pieces. But when we talk about building clarity, one of the things that was a common kind of feedback theme from the public as well as focus groups was just simplifying the architecture of the document. So if you notice and you're familiar with the current CAS for science, you'll notice a lot of the elements are the same here, but what's been clarified is really simplifying this to have 1 PE per page. And so we have that PE at top, and that's still the kind of what students are demonstrating mastery of. We have the clarification underneath that provides some examples and additional information to support educators. Below that is the assessment boundary, which kind of states the limits on large-scale state assessment. And then the foundation boxes at the bottom kind of detail the science and engineering practices, the very core ideas, and the cross-cutting concepts, in a sense to showcase kind of where the PE is coming from. There were some shifts within the academic standards, the draft academic standards, and so 6 PEs were modified to add coherence and clarity across the progression. And if you look at the at-a-glance document that was put in the chat, you get a little more information on kind of those changes. And then 8 standards were changed grade levels to better connect to core ideas explored at each grade level. And so, as Crystal said, that July 5th is the tentative date for that regulation to go live. And so one of the ways that we are helping support is that we are updating resources on our KY Standards website. And here we have a snapshot of the Kentucky KY Standards Science Resource page. And on that page, we have our professional learning modules. And then the implementation guide. The implementation guide really walks through and kind of segments those professional learning modules out to start with really that kind of basic understanding of the standards and the 3D structure, and then gets to things like identifying and utilizing phenomenon. And then we also have on there the getting to know the CAS for science, which will be updated and ready for that release. And that really lays out the basics of the standards. One of the other resources we have on there is the standards family guides. Those have been a popular resource for us. And what they do is they kind of articulate kind of the standards and kind of what those experiences may look like. And it's a good way for schools to communicate with parents about kind of what students may be learning about within those standards. So I'm going to turn it over to Crystal, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the KS for Social Studies.
Thank you, Thomas. And I have dropped the draft at a glance for the CAS for Social Studies in the chat, if you want to pop that open. Again, the tentative effective date for the Kentucky Academic Standards for Social Studies is September 5th. On the next slide, you'll see we revised science because the 6 years were up and it was time to. Social studies is not due to be reviewed and revised until 2025, but in the 2022 legislative session, the Teaching American Principles Act passed, which required us to open the standards document to insert 24 fundamental documents and speeches. And this was to be done by July 1st of 2023. And I think that we've done the best job we possibly can to get that across the finish line in that tight timeline, given the constraints that we have. The CAS for Social Studies will still be fully reviewed in 2025 based on legislation. On the next slide, you'll see these are the 24 fundamental documents and speeches. I'm not going to read those to you, but they are linked in the legislation itself and also in the front matter of the draft CAS for Social Studies document. So to assist in communicating the revisions for the CAS for Social Studies, we've provided the at-a-glance document that's linked here for you. And the digital copy includes a link to the draft standards on the KSBA website. And we are told that they should be officially adopted September 5th. So the standards writers took a dual approach in incorporating the fundamental documents. First, they included relevant documents in the disciplinary clarification statements of existing standards to support teachers in implementation. And secondly, they recognized that the 5th grade standard seen here was identified as a model for the inclusion of fundamental documents. They created a new 8th grade standard and a new U.S. history standard that aligns vertically. On the next slide, you'll notice that with this 5th grade standard, students are asked to describe the impact of fundamental documents on the development of the United States. Originally, this standard had said foundational documents. That was updated to be fundamental documents to align with the legislation. And students at the 5th grade level are asked to describe the impact of those fundamental documents. On the next slide, you'll see that an 8th grade standard was created, and the verb here is to analyze, and it is time-bound for 1600 through 1877, which supports the existing standards. It includes the fundamental documents that align with that period. And while these documents and speeches are explicitly stated and must be included, this list does not preclude you from including additional documents and speeches within your local curriculum. Additionally, there is a new high school standard seen on the screen here, and this is added to the U.S. history strand. At the high school level, students will evaluate the impact of fundamental documents and speeches on the development of the United States from 1877 to present. And this time frame aligns with the existing standards in this strand and includes the documents and speeches that correspond with events in that time frame. It's important to note that prior to this revision period, the high school clarification statements were available on kystandards.org, and these were adopted into the CAS for Social Studies to support teachers in implementing the fundamental documents. So in the draft, K-12 standards include clarification statements, which include some of the fundamental documents and speeches as appropriate to help teachers support instruction. And so it'll be important for teachers to review those clarification statements across K-12. So while having students analyzing sources has always been part of the CAS for Social Studies, this statutory change presents an opportunity to provide professional learning experiences that support educators with sourcing. And so the KDE is developing the Supporting Students in Using Evidence module. And the goal is to empower educators to be able to support students in understanding and using resources. So educators will have the opportunity to learn about the different types of sourcing, how sourcing works within the inquiry practices of the CAS for Social Studies, and how they can manage sourcing in order to support comprehension. And so this resource should be releasing really soon. Additionally, as Thomas mentioned, the kystandards.org website is the best place to go for resources to support your content that you're teaching. We highly recommend the implementation guide. If you're a content lead or an instructional coach and wear that additional hat, that's a great place to begin to look to see where your social studies program is and where to really start engaging in those professional learning modules. And we also have the Getting to Know the CAS for Social Studies module as well to support you. And so we really want to take advantage of having teachers at the table and listening to your feedback. And so we would ask that you consider what additional resources or supports that you think might be important for educators as they implement these new CAS documents, and what resources and support might be helpful for your school level leaders, including instructional coaches, content leads, principals, and we're also open for any other additional questions that you may have at this time.
Any questions for Crystal or Thomas about the standards?
I have a question about the social studies. Were teachers across the state involved in selecting some of the reading material and documents? Because for high school, I see where it said 1877 to present day, but there's not really a lot of present day documents that are relevant to the student population now. I mean, 1980s, 1855 is not really relevant to this generation of students. So I would like to know what was the rationale in picking out some of these documents.
That is an excellent question. So those documents are part of the Teaching American Principles Act and was part of that legislation that was passed. And so within that legislation, the legislators said these are the 24 documents and speeches that must be included. And so, you know, the teachers, the standards writers did not have autonomy to really adapt that list. It was provided to them, but they did try to provide as much support within embedding those documents into the standards document as they could to include that where they would fit in the clarification statements, as well as including language to make it clear that these documents are not the only documents that would be needed in instruction to give students a complete understanding of what's happening during that time period. And so while that list includes documents that must be included, they're not the only documents that would need to be included for a complete curriculum for our students.
Any other questions? Well, we'll say I'm super excited about the science standards being released on July the 5th. I'm a science teacher. I was part of that committee that did that. So that's makes me very excited.
Thank you, Jamal. I know that it was a long and comprehensive process to get those over the finish line. So it's very exciting to see a date of finalization ahead of us.
Yes.
And thanks, Jamal. I didn't want to put you on the spot, but we appreciate your time. Time is part of that work.
I have a question from the room here.
Yeah, couple of points. This is Donnie Wilkerson in relation to both science and social studies standards. But before that, I would encourage all members of the advisory council to reach out to your legislators. That Teaching American Principles Act is really anything but that. So just to make, if you're not aware of that, you may want to read that in its entirety as it was codified. Regrettably, we did not have a say in those documents or in the bill, and those of us who spoke out against that bill were summarily dismissed. But on the more important thing, in asking questions to consider about what are additional resources or supports that we can have, I note with curiosity that in the science standards, there are what's called assessment boundaries. We sorely need those same assessment boundaries in the social studies standards. And I know the full standards won't be open up for revision until 2025, but in the meantime, that would be something for us to consider as we approach that date, to insert those assessment boundaries. Teachers of social studies have been overwhelmed by the new assessments, and consequently our scores, as with science, have dropped out the bottom, and that's regrettable. We've got to do something about that. And one other resource that we could use along with those assessment boundaries would be a litany of sample questions, of assessment items, and not just those that are released. Often the released items are ones that didn't play too well on the original test and they've been taken out. Teachers and students need to see what type of questions are going to be on the test. Lots of samples. So one of the great things in teaching is good examples and bad examples. So that would be two things that I would highly like to see us look at.
Thank you. Those are good things to think about. And, you know, the full review and revision process for the CAS for Social Studies will be upon us before we know it. Actually, 2025 seems like a far stretch away, but it's actually not. And so we do encourage you to subscribe to the kystandards.org website so that you're in the know when the survey is released. We try to really publicize that, but a survey will go out around those standards. And so we do want your feedback, and we especially appreciate feedback from teachers because we know you guys are on the front lines with students in the classroom and implementing those. And so we very much appreciate your feedback there.
And I'm sure the process will be similar, but I know for science, we looked at every single feedback. It was over 500, responses. We looked at each one. So that, those things are important and are looked at. So when that does, come out, I would very much fill those surveys out.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jamal, for that
Yeah.
Endorsement of the process. We do try to adhere very closely to the process and honor all feedback that is received.
There was
All right,
also something in the chat, Jamal, about sharing the social studies and science drafts. And I would just say to the TAC committee, that is part of our purpose. So please share that with the teachers in your school,
Yeah.
administrators in your school. You know, we're looking at professional learning in the summer always. So the more people that gain access and know what's out there. Of course, KD does a great job, or I think they do, of putting it out there in the emails, but sometimes it gets lost in the summer. So please feel free to share that.
And I think
And I will say
but
we
be
shared.
considerate of the tentative at this point. Those are both tentative and the drafts.
Yes, so just recognizing that they're drafts, but the tentative dates for the approval of the standards will be new for your administrators. We shared some of these resources during March leadership with superintendents and principals, but those tentative dates are relatively new. So thank you all.
All right, thank you so much. Much good information. All right, next on our agenda is writing across the disciplines. Whitney Hamilton from the Division of Program Standards will be talking to us about that. So Whitney, you can take over.
Thank you. I'm happy to. All right. So I take it each person has been sharing their own slides.
I can share for you, Whitney, if you prefer.
I just
or
thought
you
that,
can
I'm
share.
sorry, I thought that
Yeah.
it does not matter.
Okay, go ahead. That's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can sure do it. Thank you. I was thinking you had been popping them up there for everybody. I apologize. All right. So my name is Whitney Hamilton. I'm an academic program consultant here at the Kentucky Department of Education. I represent the K-5 standards and helping with implementation and answering questions about those standards for reading and writing. And I do have a partner, Kristen Tench. She is out of the office this week and unable to be here with us today, but I wanted to right off the bat mention, because of the question that came up earlier and the interest in adolescent literacy, I want to just right off the bat to say that we are working on some adolescent literacy resources because we do know the need and the interest in that area. So I would just encourage you to continuously check kystandards.org for updates and make sure you subscribe and share with others to subscribe to the standards newsletter and just really pay attention to the commissioner's Monday message and any of the resources that are announced in there, and look for those that may fit an interest that you have. And definitely the adolescent literacy is in the works. I don't have a timeline for you on that, but I would encourage you to look for it. And I just wanted you to know it is so on our radar, even in addition to what Christy shared about earlier. Today, I get to share with you all about our Writing Across Disciplines resource. And I'm really excited to share anything that we've created because our resources are only effective a few ways. And one of those is they have to make it to teachers. If the resources don't make it to teachers, then they're really of no use. And then if they make it and they're not helpful, then that's another issue. So I hope that through sharing today, you all will be open to passing this resource along if you are already familiar with it or if you're hearing about it for the first time. And then also please feel comfortable emailing myself or my colleague Kristen Tench. We receive emails all the time that give us feedback. We would love to receive those even more often because we are truly here to help and we want to provide resources that you all find beneficial. So I just want to make that very clear that we want feedback. Okay, so the Writing Across Disciplines resource, this came about because of the many questions that our content colleagues we're receiving in the areas of science or social studies especially, about how to incorporate writing. We would hear from our colleagues that the teachers they work with and themselves too, we're not writing teachers, yet we're supposed to be, doing some writing in our classes. And so we would hear things like that. And we recognize that as an issue, and there is just a sense of discomfort around teaching writing or utilizing writing in other content areas in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases. So it led us to think, we want to help, we want to do something about this. So the Writing Across Disciplines resource was born. This is a collaborative writing resource that took 10 of us, a mixture of elementary and secondary consultants in all the different, in 5 of the content areas, and we'll talk about those in a moment. And we wanted to, it's really important to us that our work as often as possible connects and is not just another new thing. We really want it to be cohesive and make sense and build off of what we've already started when possible. And in this case, we felt like the resource that already existed that we could build from is our Composition in the Classroom resource. And I know you all have access to the slides now, so you can use that link there to get to the Composition in the Classroom resource if you would like. That resource, I'm going to go ahead to my next slide because I want to show you why we wanted to expand upon our Composition in the Classroom resource. So Composition in the Classroom has existed for quite a while now. It was updated when our standards were revised by the teacher writers several years ago. And this resource is already about writing in the classroom, composition in the classroom. So it's already touching on what we wanted to do with writing, but not all the way. So Composition in the Classroom, the purpose of it is to help teachers develop writers. Okay, so it's all geared towards helping teachers develop writers. And it connects completely to our Kentucky academic standards for reading and writing, and specifically the 3 modes of writing that our standards include for reading and writing for the composition standards. So opinion and argument writing, informational explanatory writing, as well as narrative writing. But through the strategies of writing to learn, writing to demonstrate learning, and writing for publication, those are all mentioned and examples given in our Composition in the Classroom resource, as well as tips about instruction. So this felt like a great place to start if we want to create a resource that helps teachers across disciplines incorporate writing. Let's start with Composition in the Classroom and expand from there. Another reason we saw this as a good fit is our social studies colleagues were already telling us whenever they would reach out and ask for help, we often would refer them to our Composition in the Classroom resource. And they were finding that it was a helpful tool for them to connect their social studies colleagues with when they needed help with teaching writing or understanding the writing standards for some work that they were doing. So it was already being used, but we felt it could be even better. So if I go back just one slide here, we will see our Writing Across Disciplines resource. It does contain samples of content-specific writing to learn, writing to demonstrate learning, and in progress right now is our writing for publication tasks. So that's why it made such good sense to us to connect it to our expansion, or to make it an expansion of Composition in the Classroom, because it already had the pieces. We just needed to build out the pieces. So building out the pieces, because Writing Across Disciplines needed to do more than just Composition in the Classroom was doing at the time, without the expansion. So Composition in the Classroom was helping teachers understand some strategies they could use, such as writing to learn, writing to demonstrate learning, and writing for publication, and giving them ideas for that, but only in the reading and writing classrooms, only in that setting, really. We wanted to make it better. So now Writing Across Disciplines does more. It provides strategies specifically for each of those types of writing that I keep mentioning, the writing to learn, writing to demonstrate learning, and writing for publication, but now in this disciplinary approach. Okay, so it's specialized and it helps with those reading and writing skills that are specific to each field so that it's really embedded into what those teachers are already doing. And that's also why we chose to start this resource with Writing to Learn, because we feel like all teachers are utilizing Writing to Learn and maybe just don't realize it, don't have a name for it. So we thought, let's start with where we know teachers are already, we feel teachers are already doing an amazing job. We just need to help them see that they are doing this. You don't have to be a writing teacher to utilize writing and to help students learn through writing, demonstrate their learning through writing, and even publish their writing. So we include sample tasks. And these sample tasks are representations of the types of reading and writing that experts in their field do. So it gets really specific and provides examples. So someone earlier was just talking about needing samples. This provides those samples that can really give teachers, just paint that picture to see what it is we're talking about that can be done in classrooms to make a big impact. All right, so we created this Writing Across Disciplines resource, and we even have put it on its own page because it's big. All right, so we have now a Writing Across Disciplines webpage, and this webpage is embedded in the kystandards.org. So if you go to kystandards.org, you'll be able to find this through the Writing Across Disciplines link. You can also get to each of the content areas through those specific content areas. So if you go to the reading and writing page, you're going to find the reading and writing, writing to learn and writing for to demonstrate learning, and then eventually the writing for publication. You'll find those links on each of those specific pages. You can go to the math and find those as well, or you can go just to the generic part and see all of them there from that spot. On this main one, you will see the foundational document. The foundational document is going to include everything. It is all the pieces. So all those color icons that you see on the screen, they're going to all be within that foundational document. For reading and writing, math, social studies, science, and visual and performing arts. Those are all the content areas, all the disciplines that we have represented in this resource. Within the foundational document, as well as each specific discipline, we included the front matter because we want this to be useful to folks who only go look at the math resources. So we wanted them to, whether you're looking at math or social studies or science or visual and performing arts, we wanted the front matter to be the same because we know educators need help understanding, well, what is this? Maybe it sounds, if you're familiar with writing, if it's something that you enjoy doing personally, or if it's part of your teaching already, it doesn't seem like a hard thing. But we have learned through working with teachers that we really needed to provide background, some information, some learning around writing across disciplines. So in the front matter of every piece of this Writing Across Disciplines resource, no matter what document you're looking at, you're going to be able to find out what it means by writing across disciplines. You're going to learn the purpose of the document, which I have been explaining. You're going to have an explanation of what it means to write to learn. You're also going to have an explanation of what it means to demonstrate learning through writing. And then eventually there will be the section for writing for publication. And then we also provide an explanation of how to read the templates. So all of that comes in the front matter, no matter which resource, which document you're looking at. So and the template stays the same because we want it to be easy to read. And we were also thinking about our elementary teachers who may teach all subject areas. And we wanted the template to be uniform so that as they teach different subjects, they didn't have to learn a whole new template every time. So at the top of the template, it lets you know what kind of writing the template is going to give an example of. So whether it be writing to learn, demonstrate learning, or writing for publication. And then below that, we have a section for implementing that type of writing. And that's where the disciplinary experts provided a springboard of ideas of different ways that discipline can write to learn or write to demonstrate learning. So there's just a wealth of ideas there in that section. And then we get down to the about section, and that's where you get specific information about the sample that you're about to take a look at. And in that, it provides the larger context. So it kind of lets you know where this sample would fit in a sequence of instruction or a sequence of learning. And these are all just samples, completely samples, just ideas. Underneath there, you're going to have the standards alignment for whatever content area this sample matches, and then also the reading and writing standards alignment, as well as the interdisciplinary literacy practices connections. We have 10 of those. Those practices are not standards, but we do want to show the connection there because the interdisciplinary literacy practices are really the entry point into how we can be reading and writing and using our literacy skills across all content areas, but appropriate to that discipline. So it may not look exactly the same as it does in a reading and writing classroom, but those interdisciplinary literacy practices that are in the reading and writing standards are a great place for us to enter into showing our social studies and our science and our math colleagues and our visual and performing arts colleagues how they are using literacy every day in their classroom and how they can be more intentional, which this resource helps with. Then below there, you see the actual task, the sample. So it's either a writing to learn example or a writing for publication sample coming up in the future, or a writing for demonstrating learning sample. And then below that, we have teacher notes. And this is just that extra, whatever the extra details are that we think the educator may need to help them understand the task, maybe understand how the standards align, understand why those specific standards or interdisciplinary literacy practices were chosen as the connection, or sometimes even provide more information on the sequence of how that task fits into the larger picture. And if the task was taken, maybe an adaptation from a resource that is available online, maybe a green rated resource, free online, then we have also provided the link to show you where that came from in case you want to explore more. So this is available in every single document, regardless of if it's the foundational document or the content specific document, to help you learn the template and be able to read it. So this is toward the end of my share time, I wanted to just show you here on this screen, they all match the colors. If you're used to kystandards.org, or if not, the colors do match what you find on kystandards.org. And we do have examples in each of the standards areas that you see on the screen: reading and writing, math, social studies, science, and visual and performing arts. The social studies ones even provide student samples of the actual task after it's been done with students. So that is very, very cool, we think, to have those student samples, not just the samples of the task. We, in the future, might be able to add those samples in for the other content areas. We're just not there yet, but we felt it was a beneficial enough resource to have without the student samples to go ahead and publish as is now. And the last thing I want to share before I give opportunity for questions or feedback is just some of the key takeaways that Kristen and I have had during this work, because when we meet with our national colleagues who do this consultation work in other states, we are finding that there's really not much out there for writing across disciplines. It is definitely an area that people are maybe a little nervous around, or they're not able to get the collaboration, the interest in this collaborative effort, because it is wonderful and it is fun, but it's not necessarily easy. You have to be willing to be challenged and stretch yourself and be a learner as well as a teacher. So for me, working with my colleagues, I have really been enlightened to just because I do reading and writing work every day does not mean my content area colleagues are as comfortable with it as I am. And I have to ask them lots of questions to be able to understand their content area well enough to help them think about how to use writing to help their students learn their content or to use it to demonstrate what they've been learning. So it has been very eye-opening and stretched us and brought us closer together. And I know that you probably experience some of these same pros and cons whenever you work with your colleagues across disciplines. There are challenges and there are also celebrations. So I just would encourage you to take a look at this resource if you haven't yet. Ask questions by email or now, share it with your colleagues. Let us know what we can do to make it better. And then also just be vulnerable and willing to put yourself in hard places so that you can collaborate with your content colleagues who maybe are not in the same content area as you, because we have surely learned a lot from each other. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Whitney? I know Sharon made a comment that career and technical should be included in this because they have to submit writing samples to their curriculum coordinators.
I know.
Thank you for that feedback, Crystal.
Yeah,
Crystal?
I actually have a book about writing in the CTE area that our national association produced, but it's also it's nice to even though we still have to turn in items. I know at our school, and I know several schools in our district does as well, that they have to turn in writing from their CTE classrooms, even though a large part of our classrooms are performance-based, they still want that writing piece in there as well. So, which it is very, very important. So.
Thank you for that feedback.
Any other questions or comments for Whitney? All right, thank you so much, Whitney. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I know I learned a lot from your presentation. So Jennifer asked the question, how can site-based possibly help address the issue with their writing policies?
Jennifer, could you elaborate a little bit on what you mean by that?
Like I'm not exactly sure how to ask.
I don't know. We lost her.
Yeah, I think we lost you, Jennifer. There she is.
There you go.
Okay. Like our site base has to have a writing policy. I'm just wondering if there's just any general information tips that maybe help our school, I guess, address this issue broadly.
So if you will email me, Jennifer, I can share with you what we do have available. Okay. And that would be a starting point.
Okay, awesome.
I will also say, Jennifer, on the sample writing policy, it does address writing across the discipline. So it might be that your site base just needs to go back to look at, if you follow that layout, there is a piece of it that's writing across discipline. So you may just need to go through that.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And different site-based policies vary. Some are more vague, some are quite specific. So if you look at your particular site-based SBDM policies to see how it's written, certainly a place to start, no question.
All right, great questions and feedback. All right, so that ends our presentations for today. On the slide deck, there is a place for your feedback. And we do look at that feedback. Stacy and I do look at that feedback. And I send you an email just typically closer to our meeting, asking you if there's anything that you would like to include on the agenda, because we do look at that. We do take your feedback and develop our agenda from that. So just please make sure that you do that after the meeting today. Our next meeting will be on September the 7th, 2023. And here you see the list of meeting dates. And I know that Stacey sent out invitations yesterday as well for that. And if you came in late, please make sure you go back through the chat and that you fill in the attendance form as well. Make sure you sign in so that you are accounted for being here. And also make sure you go back and look at the recording if you did come in late, because there was some pretty significant discussion at the beginning of the meeting. I will be sending out that Jamboard again via email, just for those people that did come in late to fill in or fill out. We will look at that. Stacey and I will look at that as we start thinking about planning our next meeting. And then you may get another email from me with some specific questions and things like that. Before we adjourn, does anybody have any questions or comments for the group? All right, so again, our next meeting will be on September the 7th. I hope you'll have a great summer. I need a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion.
A motion by Scott Osborne. I need a second.
Sharon
I'll
Collins,
second it.
second.
I heard Sharon first, so I'm going to go with Sharon. All right. Sharon Collins, right? Second.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, you all. Hope you have a great summer. Enjoy your summer. Stay safe, and we will see you in September.